Good to be here. So Connor said that this is his favorite topic, and it's my favorite topic too, actually. I feel like I say this probably every single time I get assigned a lesson, and especially this youth rally, but I feel like I always get the good topics. I look at everybody else's and I'm like, those are hard, but the ones that I get, I can do that. So tonight we are going to talk about the fact that we can overcome temptation. And I'm going to give you a spoiler. I'm going to tell you something that it took me 34 years of living on planet Earth to learn. So hopefully you guys will be ahead of the curve. You can learn it now at however old you are, so that you don't have to wait till you're 34 to learn it. Before we get there, though, let's take a look again at our text. Oh, hold on one second. Do you have a song yet? Okay, well, we are going to offer an invitation at the end of this lesson. I'll let Connor announce the song before we're done. But we're going to take a moment right now to look at our text of 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. And I think I said that wrong. Is it 1 Timothy 4:12? 1 Timothy 4:12, let no man despise thy youth. Be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, and in purity. It's a tall order. There's a lot of things there. But the thing is, and you've heard me say this before, the Bible has such amazing faith in the abilities of young people. So when Paul tells Timothy to not let any man despise his youth, but to be an example in all this stuff, be an example of the believers, be an example in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, and purity. That's a tall order. But Paul has a great deal of faith in the ability of young people. The Bible has a great deal of faith in the ability of young people. And so do I. Again, you've heard me say this before too. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. If I thought that I was going to stand here for half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour 15, it's a joke. You can laugh. Come on, give me something. Okay. Your silence is better than your forced laughter, so we'll move on. To the point though, if I didn't believe that you guys were capable, I wouldn't be spending my Friday night here. Okay, if I didn't believe that you guys have it in you to do the right thing, make the right choice, be the right kind of people, I wouldn't spend time at camp. The fact that I'm here, the fact that the other adults are here, the fact that these guys have organized this shows that we, along with the Bible, along with the writers of the Bible, along with God, have a faith in your ability. So take that, use it. Something that always struck me as interesting in 1 Timothy chapter 4:12 is let no man despise thy youth. I kind of struggled with that over the years. What exactly does it mean? It's like if someone says, well, you can't do that, you're too young, am I supposed to just like pop them in the mouth? I mean, what does that mean? Don't let anybody despise your youth. I think that the point is more like, don't give them a reason to. Be better than the average. Be ahead of the curve. Be on the other side of that bell curve. Don't give someone a reason to think, oh, well, they're dumb, but it's just because they're young. Be the person who surprises people. When they say, oh, that's a very mature person for their age, be that one. Be the person who continually steps up to the plate, the person who does volunteer for things, the person who is learning how to teach, the person who is going on mission trips. Be the person who doesn't give other people a reason to think, oh, youth today. Here's the thing, as Robert mentioned earlier, people have always said, youth today. 50 years ago, they're like, these youth with their radios. And like 50 years before that, they're like, oh, these youth with their novels. It happens. I mean, that's the thing. That's always been the case, that there's always been, people have always tried to look down on each other. Young have always tried to look down on the old have always tried to look down on the young. That's part of why the church is so important, is because it levels the playing field, right? It makes us all equal. It puts us all together. But so when it says, let no man despise the youth, that doesn't mean, take them by the coat and say, I am here and I'm going to do great things and you just have to put up with me. That's not what that means. It means be an example. Be someone that they understand is going to do great things. Give them hope. Give the people that are older than you hope that the church is in good hands. That's what that means. So share that with you. That one's a freebie. That wasn't actually part of my... But tonight we are going to talk about overcoming temptation. So, as I just said, the Bible has great faith in young people. The world wants to make excuses for you, right? The world wants to say that you can't understand, you're too young to understand, that you can be expected to do dumb things or to be dumb. The world wants us to think, well, that's just the way boys are. That's just the way girls are. That's just the way people their age are. That's just what they do. But the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible doesn't make excuses for you. The Bible tells you to step up. The Bible says that you have to put yourself forward. You have to do something better. And we can look at so many examples from the Bible of spiritual people who made right and godly choices when they were young and in extreme circumstances that you and I probably can't even imagine. We can look at David. We can look at Joseph. We can look at Esther. We can look at Timothy. We can look at Daniel. We can look at that little handmaid that told Naaman about the prophet who could heal him. These are people who are your age, some a little older, some a little younger, but who have chosen to do the right thing, who chose to do what God wanted them to do. So, completely ignoring any instruction that was given to me in this lesson, I decided to forge my own path, and let's look at James chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. That's going to be the text for our lesson this evening. James chapter 1, verses 12 through 15. I was really excited for this lesson. When I prepare a lesson for a youth audience, I always try to think, what is something that I really want to tell them? Like, what's something that if I could just have an opportunity, I could sit down one-on-one with each of these guys and just tell them what I think they need to know? What's something that I wish that I had known when I was their age? And I know we have a range here. We have, 7, 8, 9, 12, 52, whatever. This is for everybody, right? It doesn't matter how old you are. But I always try to think, what is something that I really wish that a speaker had said to me when I was a teenager? And that's how I approach this. So this is where how I approach the topic of temptation. Because temptation is everywhere. And I know that every generation says this, and I remember thinking, even a couple of years ago, it can't honestly be different all the time. Right? The people in the Bible dealt with the same stuff that we deal with today, and that is true. But I have to be honest, when I see the things that you guys have to face in 2019 versus the things that I had to face in 1999, it's drastically different. The same fault lines are there, the same human issues are there, but I didn't have temptation in my pocket in the form of a smartphone everywhere I went all day long. The temptation to be cruel to others anonymously, the temptation to look at things that I shouldn't look at just because I can. I didn't have the opportunity to sin as readily as kids today do. So I guess I have become one of those old people that's like, well, in my day, it was way easier to be a Christian. But it really wasn't. But I don't envy you guys either. You guys have some real struggles, and I see those. And that's part of where we live and where we're around. That's not a failure on your part, that the temptation is greater. That doesn't mean that you have maybe a bigger uphill battle to fight than people my age did in some ways, but that's why we're here, to help you. Let's look at James chapter 1, verses 12 to 15. We'll see the nature of temptation is the same, no matter what the temptation is, no matter if we're talking in the first century or if we're talking 2,000 years later, today. The nature of temptation is the same. I like the way that James talks about it. In James chapter 1, starting in verse 12, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to him that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death." Pretty straightforward. If you are ever looking for an actual dictionary definition of temptation, look at James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. Right? He tells us what it is. He says, every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Let's back up to number 12, though. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. That kind of goes without saying. Like we've already mentioned, the Bible is full of men and women, boys and girls, young and old, who faced spiritual problems and overcame. So that is a theme of the Bible all the way through. Blessed is the man that endureth in temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. All well and good. I don't think anyone here has a problem with that. We get it. We appreciate it. We like the way that it's spelled out so nicely for us. Verse 13 is interesting. He says, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man." James is quick to say, know where temptation comes from, though. Recognize that enduring it, facing it, overcoming it is something that we're all called to do, but don't blame God for it. Don't blame God for your temptation. He tells us exactly where it comes from. Verse 14, but every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust, when he's drawn away of his own desire, when the thing that you want to do is more important than the thing that you know you should do. So we'll notice here that James doesn't even blame the devil for our temptation. Right? Who does he blame? Us. He blames me for my temptation. My temptation is my responsibility. God doesn't tempt you. The devil, of course, is working. The devil's alive and well. He's working out there. But it's not his fault when you were tempted either. This tells us that we are drawn away of our own lusts and enticed. When, verse 15, when that lust, when that desire has conceived, when it's taken root, when it started to grow and to develop, when that desire has conceived, it brings forth sin. So it's kind of using the example of a baby growing. It's like it starts out as a tiny little embryo, and then it grows bigger and bigger. It develops as it goes, and that little embryo of lust turns into sin, and then sin, when it is born, brings forth death. It's not a pretty picture, is it? It's one thing leads to another, and it starts with our own temptations, our own desires, our own sins. That's the point that I want to make tonight. We have to take ownership for our sin. There are a lot of angles we can look at temptation. Like I just said, we know that the devil is a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. We know that there's influences around us in the world. But I don't think we talk very often about the fact that we are each responsible for how we deal with the things that tempt us in our own lives. Every sin that has ever been committed has been a choice. It's never been an accident. It's never been that someone just forgot what was right and they just kind of did the wrong thing. It's never been that someone got tricked into it. Sin is a choice. Sin is a choice. Every sin that I have ever committed has been a choice. Every time that I've looked God in the face and said, what I want is more important than what you want, it's been a choice. Every time that you've ever done that, it's been a choice. And that's a sobering thought. This part makes me, kind of sad to say, but I know it's true. I don't know all of you. I won't pretend to know all of you. I don't know the things that you deal with. I don't know the struggles that each of us face. So I'm not talking about a particular person here. But I know that some people in this room are very good at pretending. That's a law of averages thing. That's not because I've seen into all of your hearts and I know. That's just the fact that there's a lot of people here, and I know that's the way it works. Some people here are very, very good at pretending on Sunday. Some people here are very, very good at coming to the church building, sitting in the pew, and pretending that they're where they want to be, that they're doing what they want to do. Some people are thinking, I can do what I want, I can drink what I want, I can look at what I want, I can be what I want, I can go where I want, I can be with the people that I want, and I can keep it hidden. That's a choice. Those times when you tell yourself, I can fill in the blank, and no one will know what they don't know won't hurt them, that is a choice. And there are some people in this room, and in every room where humankind is assembled, who are very good at pretending. Some of these people are thinking, if I go to a youth rally, nobody will know, right? I'm here, I'm blending in, nobody knows. They think if I go to camp, nobody will know. Think I'm there, I might be leading singing, I might be learning how to give a lesson, nobody will know. And you know what, you're possibly right, because you can fool people, you can fool your parents, you can fool your preacher, you can fool your elders, you can fool Ethan and JJ and me and these guys and your parents. Oh, I said that already, but you're probably not fooling your parents, but you could fool them, they're back there. You know what, you can even sometimes, bizarre as it may be, fool yourself. There are times you can lie to yourself so much that you trick yourself into thinking that you're doing what you should do. But you know, without me having to tell you, who you cannot fool. And it doesn't matter how good you are at pretending, you cannot pretend God away. You cannot pretend that he doesn't see. You cannot pretend that he doesn't know. See, the fact is, overcoming temptation is about choice. It's about choosing who you're going to be, and then taking the steps, the actions to be that person. It means choosing a lifestyle that's different from the people around you. It means choosing to follow through. And it has taken me 34 years on planet Earth to learn this. Like I said before, I wish I learned it earlier. I'm telling it to you now so that hopefully you can get a head start on me, so that you can think about it, integrate it into your life here and now. Sin is a heart problem. And I know a thing or two about heart problems because I've had them. Sin is a heart problem. It is something that sneaks in there, that takes control, that pushes all the good stuff out, that leads you to say, if I pretended this far, then I can pretend that far. If I have gotten away with this much, I can get away with that much. Sin gets in there, hollows it out, takes control. Sin is a heart problem. Sin is not a Sunday problem. It's not a when I'm with others problem. It's not a mom and dad problem. It's not camp's going to cure me and I won't sin anymore problem. Ever had that one? I have. Those times you're like, wow, I'm really not doing what I should do. Maybe I'll just go to a youth rally and then everything will be okay and then I will feel better about myself and I will do better from then on. That's not the point. The point is it's a choice. Who you are is a choice. Always has been, always will be. You own your temptations and you alone must resist them. Now, that's not to say that we can't help each other. We should help each other. The Bible tells us to help each other. We want to help each other, right? But the fact is that I can't smack your phone out of your hand, every minute of the day. The fact is that whoever you're close with, whoever knows the things you struggle with, isn't going to be there to pull you out of the fire every minute of every day. At some point, you have to just do it because you know it's the right thing to do. I one time read a book several years ago that was supposed to be a book about dealing with temptation, dealing with sin, and it kind of set me on the wrong track. It was not written by a Christian. It might have been my first problem, but it was a religious type book from a person who does not have a good understanding of the Bible. And this book said that our own willpower won't work because we have to trust in God. And I get that point, and it's right to a certain extent. We all need the grace of God, of course. We can't do it without the grace of God. There's no point in living a good life without the grace of God on the other side of that, redeeming us and pulling us through. But that book kind of put me on the wrong track, though, because it kind of led me to start blaming God for my failures, right? Because this book was saying, your own willpower is not enough. You have to really lean on God. You have to really pray. You have to really believe. The point of this is not don't pray and don't believe, but that wasn't enough. At some point, I had to decide when I was going to do right. Yeah, I started blaming God for my failures, kind of in the sense of, well, why didn't you stop me? Right? I remember times praying like, well, why didn't you stop me? Like, why did you let me do that? That was stupid, because it's not God's fault to snatch me out of the fire or smack my phone out of my hand or whatever. God's job, he's done. He provided a way. He gave us his word. He gave us his son. It's my job to live a Christian life. It's not his job to control me. Thank you. That was the exact word I was needing. To control me, to march me down that straight and narrow path. I have to go on my own free will. My sin isn't God's failure. My sin is my failure. My sin is my bad choice. Always has been, always will be. Yes, we rely on the grace of God. We rely on the blood of Christ. We can't get to heaven without it. Somewhere along the way, though, you have to Christian up and do the right thing. You have to choose the right thing because it's the right thing. So let's go to the tapes. Let's do a little lightning round real quick. I'm going to throw some verses out at you. You can turn to them if you want to, but I'm going to read them real quick because I already have them printed up on this paper, so we don't even have to turn. Genesis chapter 39, verse 9. There is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Who is that? Joseph. Daniel 1:8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therewith he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Who's that? That was easy because it said his name in the verse, yeah. Daniel 3:18. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Who is that? That's right. That was a trick one. It was in the book of Daniel, but it wasn't Daniel, so I got you. I'm just teasing. You're all great. Esther 4:16. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. Who is that? Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Matthew 4:7. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And then Matthew 4:10. Then said Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Jesus. What do these people have in common? They knew the reason to resist. They knew the reason to resist. They all cited a reason to resist. Okay, so Esther doesn't specifically say, but when she tells her people to fast, and even though the word pray is in there, they're praying, we get what's happening there. She's putting her faith in God. The fact that all of these people, and this is just a handful, this is just a quick glance, all of these people across time, across the Bible, across different cultures, they all knew the reason to resist. They all were able to cite a reason to resist temptation. Joseph says, and I think this is so powerful, he gives a lot of reasons to resist, but he says, there's none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me. Those sound like reasons to do the bad thing, right? Those sound like good reasons to go ahead and sin. But because he kept me back from me thee, because thou art his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He's not worried about Potiphar. He doesn't care what Potiphar thinks. Right? He's worried about sinning against God. That's his reason. And he knew that way before Potiphar's wife caught a hold of his coat. He knew that way before. He was ready for it. When Daniel, who, as we've talked about before, was captured, taken into slavery, turned into a eunuch, which is not pleasant, he was given the opportunity to serve God. I'm sorry, to serve him too, but to serve the king by taking of the king's food, eating the rich food, living the rich life. But he purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat. He's in a strange land. He's had a lot of terrible things happen to him. But he knew why he was going to resist. It was a choice he made ahead of time. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did the same thing. Esther did the same thing. Esther had to be coached a little bit, which is fine. We all need a pep talk sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. But she's also able to eventually say, if I perish, I perish. She knew there was a reason that she was doing what she was doing. And then, of course, Christ teaches us. You guys realize that's what Matthew 4 is? It's teaching us how to deal with temptation. It's not just so we can look at Christ and say, oh, well, of course he was perfect. He was Jesus. Of course he was perfect. That's not the point. The point is that he's showing us how to do it because he has a scripture every time the devil offers him something. He knows the reason to withstand. So these people all had one thing in common. Well, at least one thing in common. They knew why they resisted. So it's not enough to be here tonight. It is not enough to park your carcass in this pew week after week. It is not enough to drag yourself to a monthly Bible study. It is not enough to go sleep in the mosquitoes at camp. It's not enough to pretend. It's not enough to try to fool the people around you. Your sin is your own. Your temptation is your own. And your faith must be your own. You have to know why you resist. You have to be prepared to resist. You have to be ready to resist. Because a lot more people have fallen than have stood strong, right? Joseph stands out because he stood strong. Esther stands out because she was incredibly brave. A lot more people have fallen by the wayside than have stayed strong. So I know that this wasn't my typical sort of optimistic, pump you up sort of lesson, but I'm actually glad, right? It's very silent right now. It's a good sign. It means you're thinking. It means you're digesting. I'm not here to scare you, but I'm here to help you and to tell you the truth. If you need something, you can come to me. You can come to any of those grown-ups back there. Grown-ups, wave your hand so they can see. See all those people back there, all those grown-ups. They want you to talk to them if you need help. These guys, they're here to help you too. At this time, we do want to close our session tonight with an invitation for anyone who needs it, anyone who is ready to become a Christian by hearing the word, believing it, repenting of your sins, confessing the name of Christ, being baptized for the forgiveness of the sins. Or anyone who's struggling with something. If you need help, we're here to help you. What song do we have?
All in all, page 25.
All right, turn to page 25 and let's stand together and sing.